Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook, Minecraft, starting with the Awakening Block Puppet Master. Chapter 41. Seeing that the effect was achieved, the Piglin King calmly took out the second gift from his arms. He said with a little pride in his eyes, "Brother, this second gift I gave you is much more powerful than the withering claw I gave you." Ji Shin's face was full of expectation. He turned around and looked closely, and found an immortal totem and a bottle of healing potion lying quietly in the hands of the Pig Spirit King. Ji Shin hesitated to speak, feeling that the Pig Spirit King was deliberately playing tricks on him. As the name suggests, the healing potion is a potion that can restore blood volume. The preparation process is also very simple. You only need to put the blaze powder, nether wart and flickering watermelon into the brewing stand in sequence, and wait for a moment to brew it successfully. As for the totem of the undying, it is a little more precious. You can get it from the evoker during an attack in the game. Wearing it in your hand can withstand a fatal damage and trigger high life recovery and shield, but this is a one-time use. Consumables are gone after use. Although the totem of undying and the healing potion can be considered precious, their value is far less than the first gift, the withered claw, not even the fur. The Piglin King seemed satisfied with his prank and offered no explanation. Ji Shin narrowed his eyes, already aware that something was wrong. This old pig liked to say half of what he said, and then let himself point out that these two things most likely had ulterior motives. "Senior, this is not in line with your behavior. Is there anything else you haven't come up with?" Ji Shin sat back down in his seat and did not reach out to pick up these two things. "Ha ha ha, smart, you are so smart. If you were a few years older, I would want to have sex with you." The Pig Spirit King patted his belly and smiled happily. Usually when he speaks a riddle, it would take the people below him 3 to 5 days to decipher the meaning, but Ji Shin can communicate without any barriers and extract the meaning of the words very accurately. Having such a close friend is simply a blessing in life. After the Pig Spirit King finished laughing, he turned to the attendant beside him and said, "Go and bring that living dead man up." The attendant nodded, his steps were very slippery, and he disappeared in a flash. Living dead. Ji Shin was a little confused as to what the Pig Spirit King was going to do. About half an hour later, 2 Pig Spirit barbarians came in carrying a player covered in blood. Ji Shin looked at his clothes and recognized the person at a glance as Wu Nian. "You really want to come back? To be precise, I picked it up." The Pig Spirit King pointed at the dying Wu Nian and said, "This guy's life is really hard. He took a blow from the Wither King, fell off a 100-meter cliff, and was still hanging on for a breath in the end. He really shouldn't have died. When he asked his men to salvage before, it was just a matter of luck. After all, Wu Nian was only a level 11 player, and the possibility of surviving 2 serious injuries was very small. As for the totem of immortality and healing potion in his hand, they were actually given to him. With these 2 things, even if you have 1 foot in the door of hell, you can be saved." Ji Shin looked at Wu Nian, who was surrounded by black energy and miserable, and suddenly wanted to laugh. He had already guessed that the Wither King would not let Wu Nian join the Wither clan, and might even kill him secretly. But what I never expected was that the Withering King would be so direct and kill Wu Nian in front of the 2 clans. Ji Shin shook his head, smashed the tooth flower seeds, and seemed to be talking to himself. "I have told you that King Wither is not a good person. He looks at you like he is looking at an object. How can he be a wise master? It didn't fall into my hands in the end. People like Wu Nian are burdened with too many shackles. They want to follow him back to the upper world, but they don't want to live up to the cultivation of the Wither King. In the dilemma, if he makes a wrong step, he will be shattered into pieces. But this is okay, let him suffer a little, and he will be more loyal to himself in the future." Ji Shin picked up the healing potion and walked to Wu Nian's side. The amount of healing potion was quite sufficient, but he did not drink it all for Wu Nian, but only gave him a sip. The potion entered his stomach and the effect was immediate. Wu Nian, who was on the verge of death, slowly opened his eyes. "Jixin, brother." Wu Nian's voice was very weak, as if he might die at any moment. Ji Shin sneered, showing no mercy to the other party. "Who is your brother? Don't have a random relationship, we are not familiar with each other." Wu Nian wanted to stand up, but his bottomed hunger level and broken bones did not allow him to complete this difficult action. Poof! A mouthful of blood spurted out, and his blood volume dropped rapidly. Save me, I don't want to die yet, I really don't want to die. Death is cruel, and even the strongest person can't help but be afraid when he reaches this point. Ji Shin was not in a hurry. He was thinking about the time it would take for the recovery potion to take effect. There was a hint of joking in his voice as he said, "Why should I save you? In other words, what good will it do me to revive you?" Benefit. Wu Nian's pupils shrank, and a feeling of sadness surged into his heart. He had nothing now, and even his life had to rely on charity from others. How could he give Ji Shin any benefits? The effect of the potion has disappeared. The withering power left by the King of Withering in Wu Nian's body breaks out. Wu Nian's heart was pounding, and the countdown to life officially began. It seems there isn't much time left for you. Ji Shin still wore his signature smile, but now in Wu Nian's eyes, he looked like a soul-stirring demon, no longer as honest and harmonious as he had seen before. I want revenge. I can't die yet. I am willing to serve you as my master and act like a cow or a horse. I just ask you to let me live. Wu Nian almost roared, recalling the withering king's palm. The seeds of hatred slowly sprouted. Ji Shin nodded. This was what he wanted to hear the most. Okay. But it's not enough. How about you let me punch you, and if you can hold on, I'll save you. Brother Ji Shin, don't make such a joke casually. Wu Nian's face turned pale with fright. Ji Shin was a level 10 player after all. The attack power of one punch was 40 points of damage. If he was in his prime, he might have tried it, but now, if he takes one punch, he will die. It's hard to get rid of the hatred in my heart without beating you. Ji Shin seemed to have not heard Wu Nian's words and had already started to twist his arms. Brother Ji Shin, we can talk about what conditions you want. I really can't take this punch. Wu Nian's voice started to become hoarse, and he instinctively wanted to retreat. The Pig Spirit King was watching from the side, his face already blooming with joy, but he had no intention of intervening. Haha, you are getting more and more interesting. Pigling King is a compliment. Ji Shin responded with a smile. The words have fallen. Ji Shin punched out without any hesitation, dealing a full 40 points of damage. Boom. The effect of the Totem of Undying is triggered. Countless particle effects popped up around Wu Nian's body, and the injuries on his body were also recovering visibly to the naked eye. Seeing the changes in his body, Wu Nian couldn't come back to his senses for a long time. He who was on the verge of death just now miraculously stood up. After Ji Shin punched him, he couldn't help but feel very good. He twisted his wrist and said, "Why don't you kneel down and acknowledge your master?" After hearing this, Wu Nian woke up from a dream and immediately understood that the Totem of Immortality had saved his life, and immediately knelt down. Thank you, Brother Ji. Open black lens bracket ding. Wu Nian concludes a master-servant contract with you. When the other party gains experience, you can extract 10% of the experience. Ji Shin nodded with satisfaction. This time he did not ask him to call him boss like he did when he conquered the Iron Armor Gang. After all, if Wu Nian rejected him in the first place, he would have a criminal record, and his status would naturally be lower. Don't worry, brother, I won't let you scream in vain. Sooner or later, the head on the King of Wither's neck will be made into a puppet by me. As soon as these words came out, the Pig Spirit King who was eating suddenly stopped and his heartbeat slowed down a beat. You must know that the King of Withering is a demigod. To make a puppet out of the head of a demigod is not crazy. Wu Nian didn't say any other words of thanks, but nodded vigorously. Ji Shin helped Wu Nian up, then turned to the Pig Spirit King and arched his body, saying, "Senior, I accept these two things with a smile. When I return to the upper realm, I will send the golden carrot as soon as possible." The Pig Spirit King waved his hand and said with a smile, "No rush, no rush. Do you have any specific requirements regarding the fiefdom?" Specific requirements. The more Ji Shin thought about it, the more he felt that something was wrong with this sentence. After thinking about it for a moment, he immediately understood what it meant. Most of the Piglin rights system is linked to land, and the Piglin King is the largest landowner. In other words, the amount of land means power and status among the Piglins. Some great lords could even raise their objections at some important meetings. But there is a very important prerequisite for maintaining this system, and that is between people of the same race. If the Piglin King really granted Jishin, a foreigner, land and an official position, it would greatly affect the Piglin's political system and even cause turmoil and dissatisfaction among some big landowners. Some Piglins with ulterior motives will use this excuse to openly oppose the Piglin King's orders. These Pig Spirit Kings knew it very well, so they had these two gifts at today's banquet. The purpose was to make Jishin take the initiative to shirk the fiefdom matter. What Jishin is best at is being sociable. He has received 2 favors from the other party once. It would be rude to ask for the Pig Spirit's fiefdom again. After all, he has seen the sincerity of the Piglin King, and the Withering Claw has proven everything. The next step is to help the Piglin King put on a show and put off the matter of the fiefdom. Jishin cleared his throat and said in a deep voice, "Let's forget about the fiefdom. After all, I am a person from the upper realm, and I am not used to living in the lower realm. How can this be done? As the leader of a clan, I have to keep my word." The Pig Spirit King said, pretending to be sulky. Jishin had nothing to say. He clearly didn't want to give it away in his heart, but his body was so deceptive. What a duplicitous guy. After thinking for a moment, he came up with a perfect excuse. "Since Senior wants to seal the land, let's grant this land to Awang, the Pig Spirit who came to power first. Without his first move, I wouldn't have defeated Wunyan so easily." The Pig Spirit King's eyes lit up, and he secretly gave Jishin a thumbs up. This way of handling it was simply amazing, he had never thought of it. If the Piglin King were to grant land to foreigners, he would definitely attract opposition from his big landowners, but if he wanted to grant land to his own people, then this would be very normal. After all, the king of a clan wants to support a new landlord, and no one can say no. "Ha ha ha, just as you said, summon the Pig Spirit Awang, come quickly." Not long after, the Pig Spirit Awang, who was covered in injuries, was summoned to the palace of the Pig Spirit King. The Pig Spirit Awang stepped into the palace cautiously, feeling uneasy and constantly wondering what the king wanted to do when he summoned him. Could it be that I lost the battle and the king wants to punish me? I was so stupid. I didn't take advantage of such a good opportunity. I deserve to be punished. The Pig Spirit Awang encouraged himself, feeling that he had embarrassed the king and would not lose even if he was punished. "Awang, the Pig Spirit, comes to see my king. Get up. Don't kneel down when you enter my palace from now on." The Pig Spirit King waved his hand, eliminating the need for the other party to kneel down. "Don't kneel down." The Pig Spirit Awang felt like he had heard wrongly. Among the Pig Spirit clan, only some landowners had the right not to kneel when they met the king. Now that he was given this right, he was really flattered. Obviously, the Pig Spirit Awang was not as smart as Jishin and did not understand the true meaning of the Pig Spirit King's words. When the Pig Spirit Awang raised his head, the figures of Jishin and Wunyan first caught his eye. He knew Jishin on the left. When he woke up from the coma, Jishin had just defeated Wunyan, so he was deeply impressed. He was a little confused as to why Wunyan on the right was also in the king's hall. The Piglin King was too lazy to explain too much to Piglin Awang, and directly read out the decision of the fiefdom. Piglin Awang has made great achievements in resisting foreigners. Now the fiefdom will be promoted to the nobility, and from now on he will be promoted to the nobility for generations to come. Promoted to a noble from generation to generation. The Pig Spirit Awang's whole body was filled with disbelief. For common pig spirits like the Pig Spirit Awang, a fiefdom is a blessing to future generations and a major event that changes their destiny. If he has military merit in the future, he may even join the ranks of big landowners. "But, King, I didn't win, why?" The Pig Spirit Awang Zongyu came to his senses and quickly asked the reason. "You have to thank our little friend Jishin. He proposed to pass the land reward to you." The Pig Spirit Awang's eyes moved to the foreign boy again. Tears were already in his eyes. He wanted to say something grateful, but his pig brain couldn't think of anything. Jishin's words directly affected the life of an ordinary pig spirit. Jishin walked forward and patted his shoulder and said, "I like people who dare to eat crabs. Work hard and strive to be promoted to a big landowner in the future." "Yes." The Pig Spirit Awang nodded heavily, and by the way, he remembered the appearance of this foreigner deeply in his heart. After sending away the Pig Spirit Awang, Jishin let out a heavy breath. Everything was done and he could finally go back this time. "Senior Pig Spirit King, farewell." Well, Go ahead, I won't send you away. Come and play often from now on. The Piglin King has now returned to the form of a meatball, and every move is very difficult. Ji Shin exited the main hall and found the location of the Hell Gate with Wu Nian. You have to be mentally prepared. The place of trial, the upper realm, is more dangerous than the lower realm. I don't know how much the zombies have changed in the past few days since I left. A place of trial. In a dark tunnel, countless zombies seemed to be eating something. The sound of tearing flesh and blood and the clicking sound of muscles and bones being bitten off made the entire tunnel seem like a purgatory on earth. An arm suddenly stretched out from the pile of rotten flesh that the zombies were tearing apart, and immediately twisted the head of a zombie. Get out of here. Get away from me, all you bastards. Immediately afterwards, the head of the second zombie was exploded by his punch. I will not die. The god Herobrine will protect me. You can't kill me. A player holding a golden carrot and wearing shabby red clothes slowly stood up from the mountain of corpses and sea of blood. His eyes were emitting dazzling white light, and the aura around him forced the zombies around him to retreat, daring not to take another step forward. Looking around, his body was covered with tooth marks left by zombies gnawing and roaring, and purple blood vessels had covered his neck. If this kind of injury was placed on a normal player, he would have died countless times. But this player survived, relying on his unparalleled faith to survive. Maybe he can no longer be called a player now, because his current appearance is the same as that of the zombies around him. The only difference is that he still retains his consciousness during his lifetime, becoming the first zombie to have intelligence. Since then, the king of zombies was born. The purple dizziness quickly subsided, and the system's voice sounded in Ji Shin's mind. Open black lens bracket ding. Shocking day 15. Open black lens bracket ding. Congratulations on the host level upgrade, level 10 right pointing arrow level 11. Open black lens bracket ding. Congratulations on the host level upgrade, level 11 right pointing arrow level 12. Open black lens bracket ding. Congratulations on the host level upgrade, level 12 right pointing arrow level 13. Ji Shin listened to the continuous system prompts, and his aura continued to rise. Wu Nian, who was shocked, backed away continuously, with an expression as if he had seen a ghost in broad daylight. After Ji Shin's aura stabilized, Wu Nian asked weakly, "Are you cheating?" Ji Shin rolled his eyes at Wu Nian, a little speechless, and hung up his hammer. This was the experience that Wang Chang and the others had accumulated for him during the past few days of leveling. Because the lower realm and the trial ground were not connected, the experience was only delayed. It has to be said that these experiences are so much that his level suddenly jumped from level 10 to level 13. It seems that Wang Chang and the others have not been lazy these days. Seeing that Ji Shin didn't answer his question, Wu Nian became more convinced that the other party was cheating. The time in the lower realm is divided into day and night. Ji Shin has been away for 6 days, and the sudden change came directly on the 15th day. The zombies have received a wave of reinforcements, and they must be given much more experience than before. However, the current zombies should not be able to destroy blocks, so Wang Chang and the others can continue to use the pedicure tunnel for a while. Later, when I collect enough obsidian, I will build an obsidian pedicure tunnel for them. In this way, safety issues during leveling are no longer a problem. Ji Shin looked around, but did not find the Iron Armor Gang or Chuling. They were probably leveling up in the pedicure tunnel. Then he took Wu Nian and briefly walked around the inside of the base. Various red stone buildings were almost completed, without any trace of damage. The 100-story farm has also been built to the 65th floor, which shows that Chulinger and the others have not been passive in their work these days. As the master of his territory, Ji Shin said he did a good job and will add chicken drumsticks later. It is indeed a wise choice to recruit a few younger brothers to guard the house. After Ji Shin muttered to himself, he called Wu Nian, who was still in a daze, to walk towards the cave. Wu Nian looked at the new world in front of him, his mouth half opened, his eyes full of disbelief, like a baby exposed to the outside world. The blue sky, green grass blocks, and green trees swaying in the wind were all things he had never seen in the lower world. Finally, his eyes were fixed on a magnificent building with more than 60 floors, and he couldn't help but sigh in his heart that it was a miraculous craftsmanship. You can read these when you have time later. Now tell me about your specific abilities. Seeing Wu Nian not following, Ji Xin turned around and urged. Wu Nian was reminded like this and hurriedly followed. My natural ability is withering an illusion. You have already seen this when I was in the lower realm. After the first level gene lock is opened, my profession has not changed. I am still the Prince of Wither, but I have the ability to infect with Wither. Withering infection. It's interesting. Let's talk about it in detail. Ji Xin raised his eyebrows. Just by hearing the name, he knew that it was a very valuable ability. Wither infection itself is not an attack type ability. It can infect a certain block or object with its own wither power. Anyone who touches them will be affected by wither poisoning. Ji Xin groped his chin and carefully considered Wu Nian's second ability. The ability of withering infestation is neither strong nor weak. After all, it is an ability derived from an A-level profession. It can be developed a little later, and its uses are still very wide. For example, letting Wu Nian control the intensity of the infection and attach the power of withering directly to the weapon is equivalent to attaching a layer of magic to the weapon. Another use is to paint the walls around the territory with a layer of withering power to consume the zombies attacking the territory, which may have miraculous effects. Thinking of this, Ji Xin nodded with satisfaction. With this ability alone, it was not a loss for him to spend a lot of effort to rescue him. After Wu Nian got used to the life here, he directly ordered him to go to work. 996. There will be no weekends until all the surrounding walls with a radius of dozens of kilometers are painted with the power of withering. The happiness of capitalists is so simple and unpretentious. In this way, the defense coefficient of the base can be increased a lot. After returning to the cave, Ji Xin took Wu Nian to the warehouse where the boxes were stored. This warehouse is very large, occupying almost half of the mountain. It is divided into 3 floors, upper, middle and lower. Each floor is neatly tidied up. Rows of large boxes are neatly placed around, with various display boards and notice boards posted on them for sorting and sorting. Now that resources are abundant, reasonable classification is essential. He asked Chulinger to build this mountain warehouse in advance. In this regard, Chulinger obviously did a good job and fully met her expectations. The items in the box are all reasonably organized. You only need to find the corresponding area, and then follow the sequence numbers of the categories to quickly find what you want. Ji Xin walked towards a box with a golden carrot sign, took out 2 sets of golden carrots without any explanation, handed 1 set to Wu Nian and said, "Don't be too restrained, just take whatever you want to use, whether it's weapons, armor or cubes of food, we have everything here." Wu Nian looked at the dazzling array of large boxes around him, swallowed, and said with a hint of uncertainty in his voice, "Can I really just take these things?" "Well, take whatever you want and be my subordinate, and you can have some fun." Ji Xin felt that he was a very qualified boss, taking care of food, housing, and distribution. Where in the world were there such conscientious capitalists? "Okay, you choose first. I have other things to do." Ji Xin waved his hand, ignoring Wu Nian who was still stunned, and turned around and walked towards the box in the ore storage area. He is now going to resolve the matter of the golden carrot promised to the Piglin King. To deliver nearly 1 million golden carrots in 3 months is not a small amount. It would be embarrassing if he couldn't fulfill the conditions he vowed to make at the beginning. Wu Nian kept walking back and forth in the warehouse, his eyes full of disbelief. Food, equipment, and blocks are all available. He now looked like a poor young man who had just entered the city, and he was still muttering, "Are all people in the upper world living such a wealthy life?" "No, to be precise, I am the only one in the upper world who is so rich." Ji Xin's voice came from afar, interrupting Wu Nian's nagging voice. "Just kidding, things are changing now. If you go out and show your face, zombies will knock your brains out." If Wu Nian had seen the scene outside the city wall, he might not be able to say these words. 15 days into the shocking incident, the zombies have already improved dramatically. Whether it is self-employed players or major trade unions, all have activated the first level warning. It is too common to not sleep well, not eat enough, and be worried all day long. Ji Xin is definitely the only one who can store such a large warehouse of supplies in troubled times in the trial area. Ji Xin came to the ore area and quickly found the box where the gold ore was stored. These gold ores have been fired in advance and look like gold ingots when taken out. 3 large boxes of gold ingots, nearly 100 groups of gold ingots, were all taken out. He had not deliberately mined ores like gold ingots before. These could be said to be byproducts of mining rocks. After the stone golem quarrying system was created, the mining matter was fully handed over to Wang Chang for management. Ji Xin only has close to 100 sets of gold ingots in his hand, which is completely insufficient to produce 1 million carats in 3 months. So he thought of another way: make a gold nugget puppet. According to Ji Xin's observation, among various minerals, only iron ore seems to be highly offensive when made into puppets. The basic attributes of other ore puppets are the same as those of stone puppets, and they are all functional puppets. You don't need to guess to know that the gold nugget puppet will definitely move closer to becoming a functional puppet. Ji Xin guessed that his ability was probably related to the gold plating of food. If that were the case, 1 million golden carats would still be no pressure for him. After all, his farm has been built to more than 60 floors. There is no need to worry about the supply of carats. The only thing that needs attention is the production of gold. Therefore, the step of making golden puppets is particularly important. Ji Xin walked out of the warehouse and went outside the cave. He found a spacious place and started his experiment. Take out the workbench and synthesize the gold ingots in the backpack into gold nuggets. Gold nugget 1 equals gold ingot 9 equals gold grain 81. Then he took out the prepared pumpkin head, activated the puppet technique, and the dead pumpkin head instantly came to life. Pumpkin head +1. Hope my guess is right. Ji Xin prayed silently in his heart and mixed the puppet pumpkin head and the gold nugget together. The next moment, a gold nugget puppet appeared in front of him. Name: Golden Puppet, HP 50, Attack Power 20, Defense Power 10, Speed 10, Special Attributes, can metallize any food and give it some special effects. The golden puppet's body shape is very similar to that of the iron puppet. Its entire body is golden yellow and sparkles in the sun. Really? Ji Xin was overjoyed. The function of the golden puppet was exactly as he had guessed. Gilding food is a magical thing in my world. Eating ordinary carrots directly will only increase the hunger value by 3 points and the saturation point by 3.6 points. A carrot plated with gold can increase the player's hunger value by 6 points and saturation by 14.4. This makes carrots the most saturation restoring food in the game. The results are immediate. Of course, apples and watermelons can also be gilded in the game to add special effects. The enchanted golden apple made with gold nuggets is even called the king of food by players. But the potential of the golden puppet goes far beyond that. His attributes can be introduced to any food. In other words, he can plate food that can be gold-plated in the game, and he can also plate food that cannot be gold-plated. Golden wheat, golden potatoes, golden beetroots. These are all things that are impossible to make in the game world, but they can all be made here with golden puppet. Just when Ji Xin wanted to test the golden puppet's ability, Wang Chang and others who had finished leveling up happened to come back at this time. Boss, when did you come back? Wang Chang's eyes lit up when he saw Ji Xin, and he quickly asked with concern. Ji Xin did not notify them when he went to the lower realm, but Wang Chang and others had long been accustomed to it. As his boss, he liked to run around. Immediately afterwards, everyone from the Iron Armor gang gathered around. In the past few days when Ji Xin went to the lower realm, all the projects in the base were proceeding in an orderly manner, but without Ji Xin's supervision, they always felt like they were missing a backbone and lacked a sense of security. If Ji Xin hadn't left them the upgrade plan before, they wouldn't know what to do now. Ji Xin turned around and saw that the men from the Iron Armor gang had grown a lot bigger, and their aura had changed dramatically. Especially Wang Chang, Ji Xin always felt that there was an evil spirit lingering on his head. Upon closer inspection, the evil spirit was very strong, as if it could condense into substance at any time. Wang Chang, what's wrong with you? Where did you get such a strong evil spirit? Wang Chang was stunned for a moment after hearing this, and then he laughed. Boss, this is not some evil aura, this is the murderous aura condensed by the berserker after I changed my profession. Change job. Murderous look. Ji Xin did not hesitate and immediately turned on the system and looked at Wang Chang. Name: Wang Chang. Level 10. Occupation: Vanguard Warrior Right Pointing Arrow Berserker. Special ability: the murderous aura can be continuously superimposed during combat, and the attack power and defense power will continue to increase with the superimposed murderous aura. Because Wang Chang is his subordinate, he can directly use the system to retrieve all Wang Chang's information and display it on the system panel at a glance. Not only Wang Chang completed the job change, but so did others. What surprised Ji Xin was that the 8 members of the Iron Armor gang actually divided into 4 completely different warrior professions. Among them, Wang Chang's Berserker is the most representative. Wang Chang pointed to the remaining members of the Iron Armor gang and introduced them one by one. Lao Er and Lao Ba changed their jobs and became human shield warriors, and their blood volume increased by 50%. Lao San and Lao Six changed their jobs and became reconnaissance warriors, and their eyesight increased by 50%. Lao Qi, Lao Ninth and Lao Ten did not change jobs when they changed jobs. They are still vanguard warriors, but their basic attributes have been significantly improved. When the player's level exceeds level 10, the first level of Gene Lock can be unlocked. At this time, players have a certain probability of changing careers, and the second career will be born based on the first career. For example, Wang Chang, his first profession was an avant-garde warrior, and after changing professions, he became a berserker, but in the final analysis, he did not break away from the scope of a warrior. Therefore, the second career can also be regarded as an upgrade or derivative of the first career. Job changes vary from person to person, and not everyone will change jobs after breaking through the genetic lock. But what is certain is that the more gene locks are unlocked, the rarer and more unique the profession will be after the job change. Ji Xin nodded and used the system to scan everyone one by one. All the information was very different from what Wang Chang introduced. The team is getting stronger, which is a happy thing. Especially the big brother Wang Chang, unexpectedly developed a kind of divine power to accumulate murderous aura. Although this kind of divine power is very weak, it is better to have it than nothing. When fighting, you can create an information gap and slowly wear down the enemy. After learning about the results of everyone's upgrades, Ji Xin didn't notice Chulinger and Calamity Lark, so he asked curiously. What about those 2 people? Wang Chang naturally knew who the 2 people the boss was talking about, and immediately said, Bailing said that he recently felt the fluctuations of the heart-breaking time and space around the base. He should be exploring the source of the sound with Chulinger now. The sound of the heart breaking through time and space. People from the Kingdom of Calamity are here. Ji Xin's pupils shrank suddenly, and he had a vague premonition in his heart. He killed 2 reconnaissance teams of the Kingdom of Calamity, kidnapped another Shinpan, and finally escaped without a trace. This incident was a slap in the face of a country, a swollen one. It was impossible for the other party not to pursue the matter, but he did not expect that retribution would come so quickly. Wang Chang saw Ji Xin's expression as if he was having trouble answering, and asked tentatively, Boss, is this matter very serious? In his opinion, although Xinpan's abilities are miraculous, his body is too fragile, and he doesn't seem to be afraid of his boss's incredible fighting power no matter how much he comes. Serious. Very serious. Let the Calamity Lark come to see me quickly, immediately, now. Ji Xin's eyes gradually became serious, and he began to think about the worst plan in his mind. Of course he doesn't need to be afraid of Xinpan. What he is afraid of is the kingdom of disaster behind Xinpan and the demigod-level powerhouses that may be hiding in the secret. What is certain now is that for a race that derives intelligence, at least one demigod will be born among them as the patron saint of the race. He chose to form an alliance with the Piglin clan this time in order to add a layer of insurance to this matter so that he could have the capital to deal with the powerful demigods. Seeing how nervous Ji Xin was, Wang Chang and others quickly realized the seriousness of the matter. The smiles quickly faded, and the 8 people dispersed around in an orderly manner. There was no unnecessary nonsense, no questioning words, but only efficient execution. Ji Xin's eyes lit up with white light, and with a wave of his hand, dozens of blocks floated into the air, forming a ladder in front of him that led directly to the entrance of the cave. Using his legs hard, his figure kept flickering on these blocks, and in just a blink of an eye, he had returned to the cave. At this time, Wu Nian had already finished selecting the supplies and had just walked out of the warehouse. When he saw Ji Xin in a hurry, he asked in confusion. Are you in any trouble? You came out just in time, come and help. While Ji Shin asked Wu Nian to help him, he frantically threw buckets of magma from the backpack space. He had collected all the magma in hell at the beginning, and now it was time to put it to use. Help me make an infinite water next to it. Oh. Wu Nian quickly took the bucket. Seeing how anxious Ji Shin was, he didn't ask any more questions and just followed Ji Shin's instructions. In the blink of an eye, a group of magma barrels were stacked together and quietly suspended on the ground. In the game, magma buckets are non-stackable items in the player's backpack space, and one magma bucket occupies one backpack slot. But in reality, this feature seems to have been removed, and magma barrels can be stacked up to 64 like other items. Ji Shin waved one hand and collected it instantly. An 8*8*1 hole opened up in the sole of his foot. Wowsow! Wu Nian's eyes almost popped out of his head when he saw this scene. He only knew that Ji Shin could summon puppets and control flames, but he didn't expect that the other party could destroy blocks instantly. Why are you still standing there? Pour all these magma buckets into it quickly. Remember, spread evenly and don't waste it. Wu Nian quickly recovered from his dazed state, picked up the magma bucket on the ground, and started pouring magma into the hole that Ji Shin had just played with. Ji Shin moved his hands very quickly and did not dare to waste any time. Now that the Kingdom of Calamity is in darkness, and he himself is in Ming Dynasty, without a few obsidian puppets guarding him, he is really worried. With Wu Nian's help, soon all the lava was poured, and the cave instantly turned into a sea of magma, and the temperature also increased extremely. Wu Nian wiped his sweat and said, "Brother Ji, are you trying to make obsidian?" At this time, he also saw some clues. It was both magma and water. This intention was too obvious. Ji Shin nodded and didn't hide anything. Wu Nian looked around, as if looking for something. "Brother Ji, where is your diamond pickaxe?" "You can't break obsidian without a diamond pickaxe." "I know, but I can dig it with my hands," Ji Shin said calmly. Wu Nian feels that his CPU is a bit out of power. You all know that obsidian cannot be broken without a diamond pickaxe, but you still dig it with your hands. Could it be that you want to practice the long-lost iron sand palm? Ji Shin ignored Wu Nian's confused expression, filled a bucket of water and poured it towards the lava. Stab! Several obsidian stones shining with dark purple light appeared on the soles of his feet. Then came the second bucket of water, the third bucket of water, the fourth bucket of water. It was not until the eighth bucket of water that all of this group of magma was turned into obsidian. Wu Nian stood nearby, imagining the scene of Ji Shin rolling obsidian with his hands, and couldn't help laughing. Suddenly, his mind recalled the scene of Ji Shin breaking the stone instantly. His smile stopped suddenly, and he said with disbelief in his voice, "Brother Ji, don't tell me that you can break obsidian just like you broke the stone just now." The hardness of stone and obsidian was no longer on the same level. He really couldn't believe that Ji Shin could break a set of obsidian in just one breath. Ji Shin smiled slightly, waved his right hand at the obsidian ground in front of him, and put all 64 obsidian stones into his backpack, and replied with a very indifferent expression, "Why not?" Ji Shin felt that if she didn't explain, Wu Nian might lose sleep tonight. "Okay, we are all our own people, it doesn't hurt to tell you. I have the ability to instantly collect all the blocks within a certain range without using any tools, and without consuming hunger points. Although obsidian is hard, it is not beyond the range that I can bear, so in my eyes it is no different from other blocks." After Ji Shin finished speaking, he took out 5 obsidian stones and demonstrated them to Wu Nian again. Since Wu Nian has joined his team, there is no need to hide some of his abilities. A qualified leader can only be sincere to his subordinates so that they can be loyal to you. Of course, his sincerity is only limited to his own people. If his enemy tries to be sincere with him, he will deceive the other party into losing their pants. Wu Nian nodded and rolled the obsidian in seconds. Although it still sounded a bit scary, it was at least acceptable. Ji Shin put away the obsidian on the ground and said again, "Okay, next I need an absolutely quiet environment to refine the puppet. You can go out and walk around the base to get familiar with life in the upper world. If you meet a group of big, square-muscled men, just tell me my name and they won't embarrass you. Refining puppets is different from collecting cubes. This requires real consumption of hunger points. A quiet environment is very important." "Yes, Wu Nian understood the meaning of Ji Shin's words, nodded and left knowingly. After Wu Nian left, Ji Shin summoned all 5 steel puppets. Now that there is a powerful enemy, there are only 2 ways to increase one's combat power as quickly as possible. One is to improve one's level, and the other is to increase the number and combat power of puppets. Now that his level has reached level 13, the experience required for each subsequent level up is astronomical. He simply calculated that even if he had an SSS level talent bonus, he would need close to 1.5 million experience points to upgrade from level 13 to level 20 and then break through the second stage gene lock. You must know that in the normal mode of Minecraft, an adult zombie that does not wear armor and has no mutations will only drop 5 experience points. Even if the zombies after the sudden change can drop more experience, one dying zombie will only drop 30 points, so he has to kill 50,000 zombies non-stop. This world has a brand new upgrade system. Every time a level of gene lock is opened, the required experience will explode by 1 level. When Ji Shin upgraded from level 0 to level 10, he only killed more than 100 monsters. However, when he upgraded from level 10 to level 20, the number reached 50,000 monsters. The 3rd and 4th level gene locks only require more experience. Becoming a god at level 50 is easy to say, but extremely difficult to do. There is no doubt that this is a very long process. The only way to quickly become stronger in a short period of time is to create an army of puppets. Ji Shin drew 40 obsidians from a group of obsidians and upgraded 5 steel puppets. 40 obsidians were enough. Puppetry is activated. Satiety and hunger levels dropped crazily. Ji Shin felt a pain in the palm of his hand. These 40 obsidians were like 40 bottomless pits, wildly devouring his satiety and hunger points. At level 13, his hunger level had reached 80 points, and it had disappeared in the blink of an eye. There was no time to hesitate, and the golden carrot in the left hand was quickly added. With the high recovery of the golden carrot, the fullness and hunger value disappeared and then increased, and then disappeared again, and finally reached a delicate balance. And Ji Shin is like an emotionless puppet-making machine, continuously outputting the power of the puppet. However, sometimes the hunger value drops too fast and there is no time to replenish it, causing the blood to drop directly and forcefully overdrawing the body. In about 10 minutes, open black lens bracket ding. Obsidian *40 puppet transformation successful. The sound of the system sounded. Ji Shin's whole body went limp and he collapsed directly to the ground. Good guy, these 40 obsidian almost drained him dry. As expected of obsidian, it has great stamina. Ji Shin laughed and wiped the sweat from his forehead. He was a little scared. If it hadn't been for the help of golden carrot, obsidian might have had to draw his blood after draining the hunger bar. At his current level, making an obsidian puppet is still too difficult. However, there was no danger, and 40 obsidian blocks were still made by him. Before Ji Shin could be happy, the system beep sounded. Open black lens bracket ding. The host's physical condition is damaged due to excessive use of abilities, and the hunger value is permanently reduced by 4 points. Hunger value. 80 right pointing arrow 76. Ji Shin only felt that his body was a little weak. The upper limit of his hunger level was too low. He was also a little eager for success. He was really wasting his body by refining 40 obsidian cubes at once. After all, humans are not machines. The system only used digital methods to allow Ji Shin to intuitively understand the harm of this behavior. Now it seems that insufficient hunger value in the early stage is one of the important conditions that restricts a person's development. Immediately afterwards, the system gave a more pertinent ability guidance. Combat puppet, stone puppet, steel puppet right pointing arrow obsidian puppet right pointing arrow netherite puppet right pointing arrow bedrock puppet. Stone puppets and steel puppets. There is no level requirement when making them, and continuous production will not damage the host's physique. Obsidian puppet. The minimum level must be level 20. If the level requirement is not met, the physical condition will be damaged. Netherite golem. The minimum level is level 30. If the level requirement is not met, health will be damaged. Bedrock golem. The minimum level required is demigod level, level 49. If the level is not reached, materials cannot be collected. Functional puppet. There is no level requirement during production, and continuous production will not damage the host's physique. Good guy, you really can't rush into anything. Ji Shin jumped up, divided the 40 obsidian stones in his hand into 5 equal parts, and threw them all towards the iron puppet in front of him. It's only 4 hunger points. Although it's very distressing, the rewards are quite rich. At least you can experience how powerful the obsidian puppet is in advance. After the 5 steel puppets got the obsidian, they officially started to fuse the obsidian. Then, a magical scene appeared. The hard obsidian began to melt into countless nano bugs, which slowly flowed into the steel puppet's body like thick purple oil. The body of the steel puppet began to swell, and its size increased by more than 3 times. Obsidian markings appeared on the surface of the body. The markings complemented the original steel skin, and finally were perfectly inlaid together. Open black lens bracket ding. Steel puppet right pointing arrow obsidian puppet upgraded successfully *5. Obsidian puppet 5, HP 1000, attack power 80, defense power 40, speed 40. Steel attributes. Immune to fall damage, has 100% knockback resistance, and can be used to repair damage with iron ingots. Obsidian attributes. Immune to explosion damage, immune to magma burning, attacks will crush all blocks below the hardness of obsidian and are not restricted by terrain. Close black lens bracket. After upgrading from the steel puppet to the obsidian puppet, the blood volume skyrocketed from the original 100 points to 1000 points, the attack power doubled, the defense power doubled, and the speed doubled. Although the puppets are strong, they are huge in size and have a fatal weakness, that is, their ability to move is easily restricted by blocks. Under the clever design of the enemy, the puppets are likely to be slowly worn to death. The obsidian attribute's ability to ignore terrain restrictions can be described as an epic level of enhancement, directly erasing the last weakness. Ji Shin raised his hand and made a move, and the 5 obsidian puppets turned into a pool of black shadow and merged with his shadow. With these 5 obsidian puppets, if you want to kill yourself alone under level 30, you can only say that there is no way. Outside the base, 5 steel puppets opened the way ahead. Disaster Lark and Chulinger followed behind and patrolled. Just now, the Calamity 100 spirits received a very strong curse. The power of the curse is a unique force in the land of disaster. It is illusory but real and is scattered in every corner of the land of disaster. Over thousands of years, the disaster villagers have completely adapted to this power and gained some incredible abilities from it. The most representative one is Zinpan's space jump. Of course, the cursed arrows that conceal the power of the godhead also rely on the power of curses. The disaster lark closed his eyes and tried hard to feel the fluctuations of time and space around him, and said, "The number of zombies here is a bit small. It seems that they have been cleaned up." "You mean, the enemy we are looking for is nearby?" Chulinger asked tentatively. "The 2 of them have been searching around the base for more than 3 hours, and have not seen a single living thing except zombies." This made Chulinger begin to question whether the disaster lark was too sensitive and felt wrong. The disaster lark nodded and said with certainty, "Well, I am Zinpan and a subject of the disaster. I am very familiar with the power of the curse, so I will not feel it wrong." Chulinger nodded and didn't say anything else. She had no choice but to release her little spider to patrol together. At this time, she also completed the transformation of the first level of genetic lock, and her abilities were comprehensively improved in all aspects. Especially in terms of summons, she can now summon hundreds of spiders at one time, but they are only about the size of a thumb, and their attack power is only half of ordinary spiders. The disaster lark looked at the dense spiders on the surrounding trees and felt a little confused. He said, "Sister Linger, I heard they said your profession is a spider mage. Is that true?" When Chulinger was asked this question, she didn't react a little, and responded with a smile, "Yes, that's right. Is there any problem?" The Calamity Lark scratched his head and said, "I don't feel like it." "Not like it." Chulinger's expression slowly became serious, and she said tentatively, "I'm not like a spider mage, so what am I like?" The Calamity Lark faced Chulinger with his back, completely unaware of the strangeness of the other party just now. He pondered for a moment and said, "Like a witch, you can summon spiders and help your teammates restore health. This is really similar to the ability of a witch." Quote. Hearing this, Chulinger relaxed again, smiled, and said, "You really know how to guess, so to speak, I feel a bit similar, but the witch is too ugly, not as good looking as me, haha. Quote. The Calamity Lark didn't answer and continued to talk about his analysis. As far as I know, the professions you players awaken seem to be divided into levels. Players with higher levels can even awaken some divine power. Sister Linger, your profession is only a C-level spider mage, but you possess two very powerful divine powers, summoning and healing. This is so unreasonable. Chu Linger frowned. She didn't expect that the Disaster Lark, a disaster villager, could analyze the player's profession so thoroughly. She slowly approached the Calamity Lark and said in a cold voice, "Then what do you want to express?" Disaster Lark turned around and met Chu Linger's cold eyes. He was so frightened that he couldn't help but take a step back and said quickly, "Sister Linger, hee, I didn't mean to laugh at you. I just feel that the level assigned to your profession by the system is too low. Your profession must be at least an A-level profession. What do you think?" The Calamity Lark was a little embarrassed. He originally wanted to liven up the tense atmosphere, but he didn't expect it to be self-defeating and made Chu Linger a little unhappy. Chu Linger flicked a ball on the head of Disaster Lark with her hand, and said as if she was joking or teaching him a lesson, "Misfortune comes from the mouth. Don't say these words again in the future." The Calamity Lark was underage now and was half a head shorter than Chu Linger. He was spinning around in circles as his head ached, begging for mercy. "I know, Sister Linger, I won't dare to do that anymore." After the two of them chatted and laughed and explored some distance forward, the power of the curse gradually faded away, almost to the point of being undetectable. The Calamity Lark said with a sigh, "Sister Linger, let's go back first. The enemy is hiding and we are in Shuang. Even if we find them, we may not be able to defeat them. How about we go back to the base first and make plans after Master comes back?" Chu Linger nodded and agreed. If it weren't for Ji Shin to guard his lovely apprentice, she wouldn't have walked out of the base at the risk of being attacked by a group of zombies. Just as they were about to go back, a slightly older voice stopped them. "Disaster Lark, my good nephew, where are you going? This is not your home." A disaster villager appeared behind them at some point, staring at them with a smile on his face. The Disaster Lark turned around sharply when he heard the words. When he saw the speaker, shock was written on his face. The visitor's name is Calamity Shinquan, Calamity Lark's uncle, and like Calamity Lark's parents, he is one of the planners of the rebellion in the Kingdom of Calamity. But in Calamity Lark's memory, his uncle had already been brutally killed by the suppressing army during the uprising. And now, the other party was standing here perfectly, which really made him a little unbelievable. "Uncle, you are not dead. This is really great." His parents rebelled, and his entire family was killed. What he lacked most in this world was family. Tears welled up in Calamity Lark's eyes, and he was about to move forward to give his uncle a hug, but was held back by Chu Linger behind him. "Don't go, there is something wrong with this person." Several pupils were rotating in Chu Linger's eyes, and those beautiful spider eyes seemed to be able to see through all the filth in the world. The Calamity Lark was stunned for a moment, then he smiled calmly and said while wiping his tears with his sleeves, "Sister Linger, you misunderstood. He is my uncle. In this world, apart from my parents, he is the best to me." Chu Linger nodded and did not deny what the Disaster Lark said, but she did not let go of the hand holding the Disaster Lark as she continued. "He may have been your good uncle once, but he is definitely not now." After Chu Linger broke through the first level gene lock, her spider eyes underwent some minor mutations. When she focuses her attention, she can see the good and evil in others. If the person has good intentions, it will be white in Chu Linger's eyes, otherwise it will be black. At this time, in her eyes, Calamity Shinquan was a complete evil man, and the blackness that filled his body was almost swallowing him whole. No matter how the other party looked, he didn't look like he was here to take the Calamity Lark home. "Lark, let's go back first. There is something wrong with this person." Chu Linger stood in front of the two of them, guarding the disaster bailing tightly behind her. Now they are weak and it is dangerous to stay for even 1 second longer. The Disaster Lark was reminded like this and immediately realized something was wrong. His uncle appeared at this time. He had obviously defected to the Kingdom of Calamity and was most likely here to arrest him. He is now a traitor to the Kingdom of Calamity. Once he goes back, there is only one way to die. The disaster lark took a deep breath, with a hint of vigilance in his eyes, and said, "Uncle, please come back. The lark has found a new home, so you don't need to worry too much. Although the trial place is dangerous, it is indeed more like a home than a disaster place without human rights." Disaster Xingquan saw that he could not be persuaded, so he simply stopped pretending and said in a cold voice, "This girl is right. I am indeed not here to save you. Today I am here to arrest you on behalf of the Kingdom of Calamity. But I still hope you will consider it and avoid the pain of your skin." He raised his hand gently, and the surrounding space and time continued to twist and fluctuate. A crack in space slowly opened, and more than 10 people walked out of the crack in 2s and 3s. Among them were 3 Vindicators, 4 Evokers, and the rest were all Marauders. It is worth mentioning that their level has reached level 10 and they have completed a step up. This luxurious lineup is just to capture a Bailing Xinpan who has not yet reached adulthood. Seeing this scene, Chulinger and his 2 pupils shrank, and they couldn't help but beat their hearts. If the other party comes together, they have almost no chance of winning. Seeing that the situation was not good, Disaster Lark grabbed Chulinger's arm and tried to space jump away. And how could Calamity Xingquan, who was also born in Xinpan, not guess it? I saw him throwing a blue ball smoothly, and a burst of blue light flashed. The ball exploded directly in the air, and the strong curse power instantly sealed the space here. The Calamity Lark's ability to jump in space was suppressed, and its jumping body suddenly fell down. I said disaster brings power. What nonsense are you talking to a kid? Let's go together and just take him down. A white-clothed demon summoner chuckled and began to chant a magic spell. 2 light blue vexed ghosts appeared above his head, ready to attack at any time. Calamity Xingquan raised his hand to block the white-clothed summoner who wanted to attack, and said calmly, "After all, the other party is my nephew. My dear brother caused the entire family to be destroyed. Bailing can be said to be my only relative in this world. It is still necessary to be polite before fighting." The demon summoner in white sneered, his eyes full of disdain, and said disdainfully, "What are you pretending to be? If you hadn't secretly reported the news to our suppressing army, how could the rebel army have been easily suppressed? Now you know how to be moral. Ridiculous." The demon summoner in white didn't save any face for Calamity Xingquan, and directly told how he betrayed the Xinpan rebels. Although Calamity Xingquan was one of the leaders of the Xinpan rebel army at the beginning, he was not optimistic about the uprising. So at the most critical moment of the war, he directly chose to betray the entire rebel army in exchange for the status, fame and fortune promised by the Kingdom of Calamity. It can be said that the failure of the Xinpan rebel army was caused by the disaster. Not only did he betray the entire rebel army, he even captured Bai Ling's parents with his own hands. But it backfired. No matter how high his status was now, he would still be careless after all. This kind of behavior of exchanging morality for status was still looked down upon by others. After the disaster lark heard this news, his mind exploded with excitement, and he couldn't accept it for a long time. The uncle he admired so much turned out to be the real murderer who caused his parents' death. Calamity Xingquan ignored the ridicule of the white-clothed demon summoner. This matter was not a secret. Only his innocent nephew knew about the entire Calamity land. His ability is no better than that of the Calamity Lark, and he cannot jump back and forth between 2 areas. If they fail to catch the Calamity Lark during this trip, these people will use him as a one-time teleportation spell. Therefore, if he wanted to survive, he had to capture the Calamity Lark and let the other party use his power to teleport them back. Calamity Xingquan's eyes turned to his nephew Calamity Lark again, and he said calmly, "Lark, take the initiative and come back with me. I will intercede with the king and save you some physical pain." Why are you doing this? My parents obviously believe in you so much." The disaster lark roared hysterically. Calamity Xingquan didn't feel a trace of guilt, and his voice was still cold. "Everything is for survival, I did nothing wrong." "No, you are the real traitor, I want you dead." The disaster lark's eyes were slowly infected with blood red, and his consciousness was occupied by the curse. His violent personality appeared, and the disaster aura in his body exploded instantly. His figure began to flash continuously, and the surrounding space restrictions seemed to be unable to hold up. The 5 steel puppets received the order from Calamity Lark, and all moved together, waving their iron fists and hitting Calamity Shinquan. Seeing that his persuasion was fruitless, Disaster Shinquan had no choice but to retreat and let the people behind him take the lead. Don't hurt him, the king wants to capture him alive. The white-clothed demon evoker controlled the two annoying ghosts to block the steel puppet at the front, and replied impatiently, I know. You don't need to repeat it. As soon as the words fell, more than 10 people from the disaster side took action at the same time. Bailing can't fight alone, we can't beat each other. Chu-Ling-Er looked at the disaster lark who had fallen into madness, and screamed in her heart that it was not good, and quickly moved forward to pull him up and escape. The furious disaster Bailing couldn't tell whether it was an enemy or a friend, so he turned around and punched Chu-Ling-Er in the stomach. Get away. The Calamity Lark's attack was not strong. Chu-Ling-Er only lost a drop of blood, but it knocked her away far away. The Calamity Lark, who usually looks so quiet, actually has such an unknown side. From the very beginning, when the disaster lark was brought back, Ji-Shin had already told them that lark might have serious psychological problems, but now that it was actually happening before his eyes, Chu-Ling-Er was still a little unprepared. Chu-Ling-Er gritted her teeth and stood up, constantly thinking about what to do next. There were 10 people on the other side, but her side's effective combat strength, including herself, was only 6. Now she must find a way to call for help from the people in the base, otherwise she and the Calamity Lark will both die here. Do you want me to move the reinforcements first and let Bai Ling take care of it here? No, Bai Ling will not be able to withstand it. Chu-Ling-Er shook her head and quickly got rid of this idea. The disaster lark's space jumping ability was blocked and he was now an ordinary person. If he left, everything would really be over. She is here to help hold it up. At least it can last a little longer. When two parties are fighting, if they hesitate for a second longer, they will lose. Although the 5 puppets were made of steel, it was obvious that they could not withstand the bombardment of 10 people from the other side. Chu-Ling-Er did not have much time to think about it. Chu-Ling-Er's eyes flickered, and finally she decided to make a risky move. She first summoned a small spider in her hand, then broke one of its front legs with force, and said softly, crawl in a straight line and don't look back until you encounter a living person. After explaining, she used all her strength to throw the little spider in the direction of the base. The little spider summoned by Chu-Ling-Er was very weak, far inferior to Ji-Shin's puppet. It would only follow the master's orders step by step and not understand how to adapt. By breaking one of the little spider's front legs, she was sending a danger signal to the people inside the base. As long as someone understood the meaning, they would definitely come to the rescue. However, this is also risky. If little spider doesn't meet anyone, she may have to die here together with the Calamity Lark. Chu-Ling-Er took a deep breath and cheered herself up. In the past, others always protected you, but now you can't back down no matter what you say. She gritted her teeth, quickly put on the iron sheath, raised her sword and joined the battle. At this time, the 5 iron puppets had been beaten with cracks all over their bodies, but they were still extremely brave and fearless of death. The disaster side had an absolute advantage in numbers and strength, but facing these 5 puppets who were not afraid of getting hurt, they had a headache for a while. Every time they were about to break through the defense line, the 5 steel puppets would always make some unimaginable coordination and push them back. The demon summoner in white who rushed at the front was accidentally slapped away by the iron puppet. He spun in the air for 2.5 times and then landed heavily. FK, is this really an iron puppet? How dare you cooperate? The demon summoner in white spit heavily with bloody saliva, and was beaten to the point where he doubted his life. It's not that they really can't defeat these 5 steel puppets, but they are afraid of pain and blood. Facing the steel golem who traded injuries for injuries, I couldn't find a suitable way to play for a while. Chu-Ling-Er, who had just joined the battle, saw a fisherman lying on the ground. He felt that he was someone easy to bully. He raised his sword and stabbed the demon summoner in white. The demon summoner in white looked at Chu-Ling-Er who was attacking him, and a surge of anger suddenly arose in his heart. Steel puppet was not a life-threatening attack, so he didn't dare to fight head-on, but he was still confident of dealing with a female player with thin arms and legs. This is too much bullying. Fang attack. The demon summoner in white directly used his second skill, and a row of fangs shot out from the ground and pierced towards Chu-Ling-Er. Chu Ling is not stupid either. When the demon summoner releases its fangs to attack, there is a long forward movement of the spell. This time is enough for her to distance herself. Hee. Girl, I advise you not to meddle in other people's business. Our target is only the disaster lark. If you leave now, you can save your life. If you persist in your stubbornness, today will be the day of your death. The white-clothed demon evoker threatened. Chu Ling shook the iron sword in her hand, and her breathing began to become rapid. She was afraid of death, but she could not leave. If she left, even if she survived, she would not be able to give Ji Shin's explanation. I advise you to leave as soon as possible. The owner of this place has a bad temper. If he knows that you are here to beat his people, he will probably twist your heads off and kick them like a ball. Chu Ling said. He also threatened. Haha, since we are here, we have taken a foolproof plan. I don't believe he can beat 10 of us by himself. The demon summoner in white obviously didn't like Chu Ling's behavior. He chuckled and summoned a pair of annoying ghosts to bite Chu Ling. On the other side, Wang Chang and the second son Shu Da were constantly looking for Chu Ling and disaster bailing inside the base. The second eldest son, Shu Da, complained, a big base also has big disadvantages. Okay, stop complaining. If you can't find them again, it will be difficult for Xiaoxin to blame them. Wang Chang replied. Everyone in the Tia gang is a group of middle-aged men. They feel that calling him Boss Ji Shin seems a bit unfamiliar, so they still call him Xiaoxin in private, which sounds friendly. Oh, let me go. Why are there still bugs in my world? At this moment, Wang Chang felt a pain in his calf, and his blood volume dropped a little for no reason. Just when he was about to slap him to death, he was quickly stopped by Shu Da beside him. Boss, do you think the little bug looks familiar to you? Why does it look so much like Linger's little spider? Don't tell me, it looks a bit like it. Wang Chang took the little spider in his hand and looked at it carefully. Shu Da, look, this little spider's left front leg is still a deformed leg. It's broken in half. It seems that Chu Linger's summoning ability can't be mastered, ha ha ha. Etc. Wrong. The two people's hearts skipped a beat at the same time. It was impossible for the summoned creature to be deformed. It was clearly broken manually. Not good. Chu Linger and the disaster bailing are in danger. After Wang Chang and Shu Da met each other, they quickly made a decision in their hearts. They divided their troops into two groups. Wang Chang rushed to support him first, while Shu Da passed the news to Ji Shin. Outside the base, Chu Linger was bleeding and flying backwards, and the shield in her hand was smashed into pieces by the annoying ghosts hovering in the air. At this time, 2 of the 5 steel puppets had exploded, and the remaining 3 puppets were also seriously injured. It's over. The strength gap between the two parties is really too big. Chu Linger's heart was shaken. The only thing that made her feel relieved was that after the disaster lark switched to the furious personality, she did not choose to rush forward and fight the opponent desperately, but stood there enraged helplessly. This undoubtedly relieved a lot of burden on her protection work. The demon summoner in white wiped the sweat from his forehead, crushed a small spider on his shoulder to pieces, and said with some fear, I didn't expect that a girl like you, with her delicate features, would be really strong in a fight. Quote, weakness is the killer's deepest weapon, and Chu Linger is undoubtedly an expert in this area. If the Calamity side hadn't relied on having more people to defeat fewer people, the white-clothed demon summoner might not have been able to defeat Chu Linger, who was wearing iron armor. Chu Linger gave herself a sip of milk first, and her blood volume increased a little. Then she picked up the iron ingots that fell after the puppets died on the ground, and revitalized the lives of the remaining iron puppets. She kept thinking about how to save time next. Take it off longer. I think you are tired from fighting, how about we take a rest and fight again later? Seeing that she was losing, Chu Linger was about to use her mouth escape technique to delay time. At this time, Calamity Xingquan saw Chu Linger's plan, stood up and said coldly, this is a place of trial. It is not suitable to stay for a long time. Let's fight quickly. The summoner in white replied impatiently, you are not the boss of our team, so don't teach us how to do things. They're all a bunch of idiots. A trace of sullenness flashed across Calamity Xingquan's face, and he took a deep look at the demon summoner in white, but he had no choice but to curse secretly in his heart. He himself has no fighting ability and can only be responsible for guarding from the side. When the other party said this, it seemed that he was a bit nosy. However, he is not wrong to worry. Although this place looks the same as the normal main world, it has been transformed into a training ground for players by some powerful force at some point. Players are given professions and awakened abilities here, and then grow or die in trials. Who can survive to this day without some opportunities and means? The longer time passes, the greater the variables will become. On the other side, Chulinger's beautiful spider eyes kept switching back and forth on the other party, and she had some guesses in her heart. People on the other side are not united, and there is no absolute leader in the team. Instead, they are more like temporary workers put together to perform emergency tasks. Maybe you can take advantage of this. Everyone, I'm very curious. After you capture the disaster lark, there must be a lot of rewards. Seeing that the other party was about to take action again, Chulinger quickly started to talk away to delay time. The demon summoners in white were not stupid either. They knew that the other party wanted to delay, and had no intention of stopping. They took turns to attack the steel puppet in front of them with various attacks. You don't need to worry about any of this. After we take over Bailing Zinpan, the king will reward us. Chulinger gritted her teeth and raised her sword to block a Taoist priest's axe, then continued the topic again. Then everyone deserves the credit this time. It's still a big credit and you should share it equally. Why do you talk so much, a little girl? What does your credit have to do with it? The white-clothed demon evoker was a little impatient when asked, and quickly dodged the attacking steel puppet, and joined the other demon evokers to release fang attacks to stab Chulinger. Chulinger stumbled on her feet. The four fangs completely blocked her retreat route. She had to use her body to resist the blow, losing most of her health. Without two steel puppets, their side's defense already had a big problem. 10 of you are fighting for life and death here, but the credit is shared equally among 11 people. Don't you feel a bit shortchanged? Chulinger was unwilling to give in and pointed out the most critical issue directly. Hiss. As soon as these words came out, the demon summoner in white stopped suddenly, and there was a hint of surprise in his voice. Yes. Why are we fighting here to fight to the death? We should share the credit for the disaster. Until now, all 10 of them have been injured to some extent. Especially the demon summoner in white, who had just been hit by a puppet and forced him to fight, and now his face is crooked, but Calamity Xingquan is standing aside like a normal person. If Chulinger's words were placed in a normal disaster team, they would have no effect at all. But this team happened to be put together temporarily, and the relationship between them was more like that of mercenaries and mercenaries working together for money. They had to admit that Chulinger's words really touched their hearts. Seeing that the atmosphere was not good, Calamity Xingquan slowly took half a step back and said in a stiff voice, "Don't blame me for not reminding you. If you fail to complete the task, you and I will not be able to bear the punishment from above." Hey, what are you in a hurry for? Did we say we were going to take your life? A faint smile appeared on the corner of the white-clothed summoner's mouth, and he looked at each other with a tacit understanding. Zinpan's status was not high to begin with, and he could even be called a lower-class citizen. Although the Calamity Xingquan betrayed the rebels and obtained an official position, in their hearts he was still a lower-class citizen and could be killed at any time. It better be this way. Calamity Xingquan had a hint of vigilance in his eyes. He was sure that his good teammates had already thought of assassinating him. Finally, after 10 of them took turns to attack, the remaining 3 puppets were defeated by the disaster squad one after another. Without the steel puppet to absorb the damage, Chulinger was completely unable to withstand it alone, and was beaten to the point of dying. "Girl, I asked you to run just now, but if you don't run, you will die now. Do you have any last words?" The devil summoner in white smiled proudly. Chulinger was held up in the air by 2 annoying ghosts, with blood dripping from her forehead, looking very miserable. She really tried her best and used various methods. Unfortunately, in the face of absolute strength, little cleverness was useless. Just when Chulinger was despairing, she seemed to feel something. A very familiar smell was approaching at an extremely fast speed. She raised her head suddenly, tears glistening in her eyes. "You are finally here. What? Who is here?" The demon summoner in white didn't understand. Chulinger squeezed out a smile on her bruised face and said, "I say you are all going to suffer." As soon as the words fell, An obsidian puppet fell from the sky and trampled the white-clothed summoner to pieces, causing blood to flow everywhere. Immediately afterwards, a young man with white eyes walked slowly into the forest, and a dozen obsidian stones were spinning around him as if they were alive. It depends on the owner to beat a dog. In my territory, if you dare to touch my people, you are so brave. The flame in Ji Shin's hand suddenly lit up, and the high temperature of thousands of degrees burned the two annoying ghosts holding Chu Linger to ashes. Chu Linger fell down and was firmly caught by a grass cube and sent to Ji Shin's side. Wu, if you don't come here, I'll be beaten into a pig's head. Chu Linger didn't forget what she said when she saw Ji Shin was back. Ji Shin smiled slightly and surprisingly did not fight back against Chu Linger this time. Even though she knew she was outmatched, she still did not choose to leave her companions and run away alone. This deserved her gentle treatment. You've done a great job, leave the rest to me. Ji Shin put Chu Linger down and threw a large number of golden carrots to her from his backpack. Chu Linger picked up the golden carrot and quickly replenished her hunger level, then suddenly thought of the disaster lark beside her. That precious apprentice of yours seems to be crazy. Do you want to go and see first? Ji Shin heard this and looked at the furious disaster lark, feeling helpless in his heart. My disciple's psychological problems must be treated, otherwise he will suddenly switch to an angry personality in the future. Who can bear this? At this time, the calamity lark was still roaring crazily. It wasn't that he didn't want to move, but that he couldn't move. The small blue light ball thrown by the calamity Xingquan was used to restrain him at the beginning. Everyone on the side of the kingdom of calamity was stunned. Ji Shin's blank look alone had frightened them out of their wits. 5 giant obsidian iron puppets with glowing red eyes stared at them, and the pressure on them made them breathless. They knew very well that if they moved, these 5 vicious beasts would tear them into pieces without any chance of fighting back. Ji Shin ignored the people from the Calamity Kingdom and walked straight towards the Calamity Lark, speaking in a very gentle voice. Lark, wake up, it's time to get up. Thanks for watching, please like and subscribe.